The transportation and logistics industry has its own set of challenges. In the hot seat, industry thought leaders take on M&A and what's driving the future of transportation and logistics. Are you ready for the hot seat?
Welcome to In the Hot Seat with the Tenney Group. I'm Spencer Tenney. It's good to be with you. Today, we have an exciting client edition of the Hot Seat. With us in the Hot Seat today, we've got Brandon Johnson, former owner of the Hagen Johnson Group, who recently sold to Hennef Transportation. I can't wait to unpack this experience and to educate other business owners. Brandon, welcome to the Hot Seat.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, sir. Well, we're going to heat things up here in just a moment, but for those who are not familiar with your company there, tell us just about 30 seconds, just to kind of like just an overview of the company, and we'll get a little bit more detailed after that.
Sure. So Hagen Johnson Group is a group of companies that is centered around liquid bulk food grade transportation. There's a trucking company, a internal food grade tank wash, and then a brokerage. And all three groups of those companies, I think the highlight and the passion behind the company, the attempt what to do is to be writing from a lead position what liquid bulk food grade transportation should be.
I love it. I love the passion. And I also love another thing that you didn't share, that there's a little family dynamic here as well, which that I think many of our members of our audience will relate to. So tell us the genesis. How did you come to get involved in this company?
Yeah, great. Thank you. That wasn't going to be included in the 30-second one. So family, yes, family company, like a lot of companies start. My father-in-law started it in 1979 and grew it to a place where there could be an acquisition. And so it was that matched up with the same time my two brother-in-laws were, had graduated college. I had graduated college, got in the workforce for 2 years, and ironically was working at Hormel Foods. So from a professional side of my work career, I've never not been in food. So I was working there for 2 years. There was an opportunity to expand the family business and purchase another trucking company. My father-in-law needed help. So my two brother-in-laws and myself formed a company and came into the family business and started working. So, and then that was 21 years ago. And so it continued to grow and evolve until we sold it here in November.
And probably a few stories along the way, I can imagine, over that 20 years and all the family dynamics and whatnot. But so I'm curious, the passion for food, obviously you started there. Like, what is that? Where does that come from?
I think when I think about that, I think about I love hunting. And so if you're an ethical hunter, you're tied to the land and the food source. And so my wife and I really love to cook. We love culture. And so cooking and culture are tied. In addition to that, my grandfather owned a butcher shop in Wisconsin. And so I kind of was learned all of that from a young age. And I think I just stored it somewhere. And it wasn't until maybe like 5 or 6 years ago that I started putting these pieces together, because I started asking myself some of the same questions, like why are you doing this? Why does this like light your fire? The food safety, really wanting to ensure that people don't forget where food comes from, and the importance of the supply chain, importance of the farmers, importance of taking care of the land that we inhabit, our total ecosystem, to make sure that we're producing food correctly, it's getting moved correctly, and that people are understanding the importance of all of those things. So I think that is just it's been something that it just lights my fire. When you're visiting a foreign country and you're experiencing their culture, stories are centered around a supper table and a meal and food. And so that's really where I think it all comes from.
What's interesting, I kind of look at you and like you were thinking about the integrity of our food before that was actually cool and a relevant political topic for that matter. but I see it everywhere now. I see so many people in my area for core food things like chickens and hogs and things. I mean, things that were never happening 10 years ago. People are kind of taking that. If they have land, they're really sensitive about the quality of their food, and so I really appreciate the passion there. Now, some of that passion is extended in you've actually put your money where your mouth is, and you've provided leadership around that, and that's ultimately how we first met with the International Milk Haulers Association. So, tell us about your involvement and why do you feel compelled to serve in that area?
The family business really started around dairy, and I mean Wisconsin. I love cheese. You have to, and so it's really just it's a great association. I was invited in 2016. So we had started our brokerage, and one of our carriers reached out to me and said, "Hey, you really need to come to our annual convention. It's in Arizona. I think you and your father-in-law would find it great, and I'd like to see you there." So booked the tickets, got there, and it was like on the first day of the meetings, before we had the business meeting, he is like, "I think you should run. We have an open board seat. I think you should run and be on the board." And so I did that, and they put me on the board. And the fast track story is I feel like anytime I'm a part of anything, it's really important to me that everyone understands their place and the direction is clear of what is the intent, the purpose, the mission, the vision. Those things are clear and intentional. And so I think in 2018, the vice president position was open. I ran for that. I was the vice president for 2 years or 3 years, and then I became the president, which I am today, and that was from 2020. And so I think it's, again, it involves the ecosystem, how everyone is looking at what we're doing as being in this part of the supply chain, why it matters to the people that are doing it and the people within that ecosystem, and how we can do the best with what we have. And usually a lot of times that involves your awareness, your attitude, figuring out how to work and communicate better with people, come to collaborative solutions.
Well, I appreciate the way that you've served, and great organization for those that are in that space that are not yet a part of it. A great way to lock arms with people and to grow together. Let me transition the conversation, sir. You and I both have something in common in terms of a little bit of a family dynamic and some history there. One of the questions that most every business owner is interested in is, how did you come to the decision to exit? Obviously, you and your wife, Teresa, are great partners, and it's really special to watch you guys work together and process together. Walk us through this decision. How did you arrive at this, and how did you know this was the right time for you guys?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'll start it by saying, myself personally, the strong desire to go back to that one statement, feel like I want to be in a position where I can author. I felt like looking at the landscape that no one is really authoring our part of the supply chain, the liquid bulk food grade transportation. And for a long time, I was really wanting to do that ourselves. And trucking is very capital intensive. And I think kind of was coming to this realization that dream and goal was going to take a while. Like I have a certain podium or platform that I'm speaking from, but my trucking company is not large enough to put me on a platform that maybe gets me an ear with ADM. I'm just saying, for example, or some large company. And so I think what happened in probably coming out of winter of 23 into 24, I started looking at things differently and realizing that if there could be a strategic partnership that could be formed, or someone that was looking to diversify and grow into liquid food grade transportation, that I could lead in that capacity, and we could have, it's really important also the culture piece. So all of the people that we have in our group of organizations, I wanted to have a place for everyone to have opportunities for growth and those sort of things. So really there became this idea, looking at a challenge in a different way and saying, there's an opportunity here if I could find a strategic partner that would be willing to acquire us, where I could lead in a new capacity, take off some of the, well, a lot of the ownership weight that falls on a entrepreneur or family business owner's shoulders, and really focus on the things that I was wanting to do. And so that's coming to you all, to the Tenney Group, and engaging you and saying, this is what we'd like to do. And then you guys, filling up the portfolio with people to talk to get the conversation started.
Well, obviously, we're very grateful that you entrusted us with that responsibility. So let's talk about that process. You have a little bit, not a whole lot of perspective just yet. It's not a whole lot of time has passed. But what are some of the things that stood out to you in terms of lessons that you learned during the process that you think might be helpful for other business owners who may be contemplating an exit at some point in the next year or two?
I think it really boils down to, you have to, you need a subject matter expert in the room. So I might be a subject matter expert in liquid bulk food grade transportation, but I'm not in mergers and acquisitions. So there's so many different subgroups of mechanicals, the actual transaction, filling up the data room, negotiating and having conversations with potential suitors, building the list of potential suitors, having the experience to having had the experience of many transactions to understand that everyone is unique, and there's the valleys and the mountains, and really being able to navigate those in a calm manner and give expertise. So I think, I knew that was not me, and so it was needing to find someone that has that expertise, but more importantly, being able to trust them. And so that goes back to you and me meeting at the International Mail Callers Association, you being a speaker of one of our sessions, just getting a conversation. And then obviously, I feel like there's always a check plus for me when we can have conversations about faith and align that way. It's really easy to gain that trust. And so I think I've strayed off the topic there, but really, those are the things. Those are the things that I feel like, I don't have that expertise. This is a really significant chapter of our life, and I need an expert in the room. I mean, when you talk about an annual thing, I'm not, with owning 3 businesses and a couple more in a holding company, I'm not trying to do my taxes myself. You have to go to a subject matter expert. Right. So it's like the same thing, except this is way bigger than just every single year.
I think that's a great point. We appreciate that. And, I do think that there's a lot to be said just about chemistry. And I think that's, like the same thing. We're looking for owners that we think we can work well with, and it goes the other direction as well. And so, so let's talk about the future. You're now within a transportation, a group that has been very acquisitive, very growth minded, which I know, as we talked about, this inevitable outcome with someone, right, that you were going to get an opportunity to have a different kind of influence as a leader. So I want to tell us and our audience, what is your role going to be with this new organization, and what are you excited about?
Yeah, I mean, the generic version is everything you just said. So my role right now is Senior Vice President of Carry Transit. So I will be helping to lead up their liquid food grade bulk division. Carry Transit has had a certain business model, and Bob Hennef is just a fantastic person. And he's just just thinking of him lights my eyes up, because he is aggressive, but aggressive with a vision in the correct way. And so I'm excited to diversify and grow their liquid food grade division. And so I think you said a lot of the things that I'm excited about already. Just the ability to influence more, have a larger platform, and build leaders within the food grade supply chain that will take the things that I'm trying to do and expand them in the marketplace and help collaborate, because I really think that that's something that's missing in the transportation industry, is just the collaboration between the supply chain to ensure that we're doing things right for the end user, the people where the food ends up on your table or your daughter's table and your grandchild's table, whoever. It's got to be right. It has to be right.
No, I love that. And, and I'm curious because many of our clients have a hard time developing a vision for what life might look like after a transition of ownership. Now, to be fair, you're a little bit of a younger profile than a lot of folks that are exiting. So I think that was kind of more of an obvious thing for you. But did you see this modeled out somewhere? Because I think a lot of folks kind of elect out of the possibility that they might have a thriving career working with a buyer. But you never, you kind of had this dialed in even early in our conversations. Like if you were going to transition, like this was the desired outcome. Like, tell me, where did this division come from? How did you know this was something that you could dial up?
I think, going back to my love for food, I would just say that I think my purpose here on earth is to be the example of a strong leader, a God-fearing leader, and it just so happens that the food supply chain is the medium with which I've been given, and I fell into it, and I love it, and I'm passionate about it for all the reasons. Maybe that was a little divine intervention way back when for me to be in this field. But so I think that really the transition wasn't at the point where I was like, well, could I take this family business and I should do it to retirement age and then figure out how to transition. It was really probably more so out of securing the vision for my passion and what I should be doing. And if I don't do that, if I wasn't doing that correctly, then I'm not really being the best leader I can be to the people that I'm most influential to. So my 2 children and the people in my church and the people that I interact with, our employees, the people that I'm representing in our associations, they see that. They know that. You can feel energy from a person. So really, I think all those things put together was like, I need to be pushing myself, stepping up my game, and find opportunities to do this at a place where I feel like I'm supposed to be doing it.
So I'm very curious. What encouragement would you give? Because unfortunately, for a lot of folks, it's been a slug the last 24 months in this space, and you don't want to confuse just fatigue with a misguided purpose. That's not what I'm saying here, but I do think there are a lot of folks who know that precisely that they're not in the right position that they should be, not doing what they're called to do, but yet there is a fear of transitioning to something different. What advice would you give to folks who are kind of struggling with that right now, that know that a change needs to happen, but resist it?
It's probably doing some important self-talk, time away, understanding what really seriously your goals are for yourself as an individual. Because if they're not in alignment with what you're doing, it signifies a large juncture, a fork in the road. And if you ignore that opportunity of the fork in the road, you're putting yourself down a path where you're going to probably have regrets. And that fork in the road isn't just like, oh, I'll just go down this path. It's significant because it involves everyone. when you're a business owner and, we're only 3.5 weeks or something post transition transaction. So when you're a business owner and that's all you've been doing, just think of the amount of people, they know you as, well, you own this company or you do this. And so I don't own that company anymore. We have different companies that we're still doing. So in a way, I'm cheating or sidebarring that just a little bit because we have some other initiatives, a startup company and some other things that we're doing. But I still think it's just those you have to put a lot of thought into that because it is a significant change. Are you crystal clear with what you want for yourself? Because if you are, and it involves that change, then you should start having conversations with professionals and experts to get yourself to a place. And maybe it's hiring a coach to really go down all the paths of possibilities that you have for yourself to say, like, how certain am I that I want to change? And why do I keep thinking, why do I wake up in the morning dreaming of something different? Should I keep ignoring that because that's what I'm doing, or, whatever?
I think that's very sound advice, sir. We talked about leadership, and it's certainly something that you've invested in yourself. It's something that you feel called to do. I'm curious, who would you say are some leaders along the way who've had profound influence on you?
Wow, that's well, obviously the first one, the biggest one, Jesus. Just his story. It always brings me to an emotional place. Greatest gift to man. And then I think of my grandparents, all four of them. So just hard people with hard work that have certain standards that they're just not willing to allow to slip. So Jesus, my grandparents, and then I think there's just been some fantastic MLK, Abraham Lincoln. I mean, I kind of am partial to history. So when you read about those people and the things and the times they were in, the decisions that they had to make that were not in alignment with, maybe in Abraham Lincoln's case, with maybe what he wanted to be doing with his life, or, but this needed to be done, and he was the man up. And so the ability to just be humble and to serve even in the face of adversity, and when maybe it's not even in alignment with your desires, those are the types of people that I think you just can draw strength from. That I always can say to myself, well, I'm not in that position. I don't have it that hard. I didn't have to do that. So I can go one more mile.
One more mile. I like that. So you got a new team that are going to be under your leadership here. And I'm curious, you're only a handful of weeks in it, but if you were in a training session and one of your trainees said, hey, Brandon, if you had to put a couple words around your brand of leadership, what would be a couple words that would capture that?
Inspirational, and wanting to engage. It's definitely servant leadership. I want to sometimes almost to a fault. So as a business owner of a small company, I'm a smaller group of companies. I'm used to having my hands in everything, or at least understanding everything. And so now I'm going to have to learn stepping into a larger space and understanding and trusting and delegating and those sort of things. But the inspirational servant leadership, loving on people, wanting them to be the best version of themselves and growing. So growth-minded leadership.
I love it. I love it. What would be one piece of advice that you would give to folks? Let's say it this way: family-owned companies. Be very specific. Family-owned companies. Because that's a little bit different than the typical business owner thinking about transitioning. What advice would you give them on how to communicate internally within the family about these types of important decisions?
We were so fortunate, and I'll say we, really, my one brother-in-law and myself, were so fortunate to have run across someone that was a family business coach. And I wanted to level up my leadership, so I hired her. I had a couple of opportunities of people I was looking at to hire as a personal coach, and I hired this person. She was fantastic. It was so I started leveling myself up at the same time I started realizing things could be different. And so what happened is I started talking with my brother-in-law. He had met her previously, and I said, I think we should hire her as a family business coach to help us get through these types of conversations and navigate them and set them up correctly, structure-wise. So we're involving the more silent people, everyone in the ecosystem that should be involved. So family members that aren't working in the business but are still owners, spouses, father-in-law, mother-in-law, even though retired, it's still a part of your family. So I definitely would say you have to, involving someone like that is going to allow you to ensure that you've swept out the corners of every closet and had the conversations you need to have. They're not always going to be easy. I doubt in any case they'll be easy, but they're the right conversations because you have to have those right conversations. If you don't, you're setting yourself up for a difficult conversation later on down the line, and then mixed feelings, missed ideas of what was supposed to happen had happened.
No, that's pure gold. I hope our audience is listening intently for that. So I've got one last question. But before I say that, hey, Brandon, just thank you so much. It truly is an honor to have served you and Teresa through this transition, and I'm so excited to see what you're going to do with Bob and his team at Hennef. So I got one little wild card question for you, and we'll end with that. We're post closing. You and your beautiful wife Teresa are going to go celebrate and go buck wild. Any dream scenario? What restaurant are you going out to? What's the experience? How are you guys going to go celebrate this transaction?
Oh my goodness!
When the smoke clears, when the dust settles from the craziness immediately after the transaction.
Okay, well, so I think this one isn't that difficult. So we celebrated 25 years of marriage in October, and we really just completely put it off because we were in the thick of everything. Mm-hmm. And I would not have said this is how we should do it, but because we love, here we go again with food, because we love food, she follows someone on social media that had a food-centric tour to Mexico City and Puebla. And so we are doing that in March, and I think that's kind of going to be our little celebration of sorts, of 25 years of marriage, making this happen. It'll probably be right timing also, because in March there should be definitely a more clear idea of how things look when you're saying the smoke clears. I mean, those sort of things. But so that's what we're doing, and I'm really excited for it.
I love it. What an answer, and what an interview. Well, thanks for your time, Brandon. That's going to do it for us in the hot seat. We will see you next time.
Thank you, everyone.